Tonight on Business Live, increases in transport fares and surging food prices push inflation to 27.6% in May this year, as interest rates are expected to go up as well.
Year-on-year inflation for the month of 2022 stood at 27.6. This indicates a 4.0 percentage point variation between the rate that was recorded in April 2022 relative to May 2022.
Meanwhile, economist Dr. Edu Sarkodie cast doubt over the central bank's optimism that inflation will return to single digit next year, considering the current factors driving the rate.
To the extent that the war will continue, I'm not sure we'll be able to deal with the inflation, but we have to start putting things in place now.
Also, sources predict more discomfort for passengers from Ghana as major airlines line up after British Airways to limit flight schedules amid staff shortages. But what happened to Ghana's national carrier? What impact would it have had in the country's rising business passengers? We have an expert to discuss. You're welcome. I'm Charles Ayitey. Now, increases in transport fares and the surging food prices pushed the rate of inflation for the month of May to 27.6%. Now, this is against 23.6% recorded in April. According to the government statistician, Professor Kobna Enim, the rate of inflation for food, transportation and electricity, water, household and gas were higher than the national average of inflation. We have more in this report.
All the goods and services in the basket, which measures the rate of inflation, recorded an increase in prices year on year. According to figures from the Ghana Statistical Service, the month-on-month rate of inflation stood at 4.1%, but the financial and insurance subsector recorded no change in price for the month of May. Here is government statistician Professor Samuel Kobna Enim.
Year-on-year inflation for the month of 2022 stood at 27.6. This indicates a 4.0 percentage point variation between the rate that was recorded in April 2022 relative to May 2022. As it would be recalled, in April 2022, year-on-year inflation stood at 23.6, and for May 2022, year-on-year inflation was 27.6. This literally means that over this one-year period, that is between May 2021 and May 2022, prices of goods and services have gone up by 27.6%. On a month-on-month basis, that is between April 2022 and May 2022, prices of goods and services went up by 4.1%. Disaggregating this inflation rate across food and non-food inflation and also across locally produced items and imported items, food inflation for the month of May 2022 stood at 30.1%, and non-food inflation for the month of May 2022 stood at 25.7%.
The Upper East region registered the lowest rate of inflation of 18.7% in May, whilst the Eastern region recorded the highest rate of inflation of 31.2%.
From a regional perspective, Eastern region recorded the highest overall rate inflation of 31.2%, and Upper East recorded the least inflation of 19.5%. On a month-on-month basis, rate of inflation for the month of May 2022 stood at 4.1%, decreasing by 1.0 percentage point relative to the rate recorded for April 2022. On a month-on-month basis, food inflation and non-food inflation respectively stood at 4.0 and 4.1%. We further do disaggregation to guide our discourse on rates of inflation. We identified 89 items that recorded inflation rates higher than the national average of 27.6%. Out of these 89 items, 47 of them were food inflation, specifically with local food 32%, 32 of them, and imported food 15%.
Meanwhile, the Ghana Statistical Service from next month will start releasing the rate of inflation for all the 16 regions in the country.
Still with inflation, because economist Dr. Edu Sarkodie has cast doubts over the Bank of Ghana's optimism of a single-digit inflation by the end of 2023, considering the current factors driving the rate up. He spoke earlier on the marketplace.
Still not recovered from the COVID-19 effect, and then we have also not recovered from the war. So a lot depends on when the Russia-Ukraine war is going to end. Even if the war ends today, it will take Ukraine more than 5 years to recover everything and to reposition their economy. So if you are fully dependent on Russia and Ukraine, and the war even ends today, it's going to take us about 5 years to get back to normal levels. So if you depend on somebody and the person is not able to help you, what do? You don't fold your arms and sit down. You have to do something for yourself internally. So the simple answer to your question is that it depends on the external factors, which have been the contributory factors driving inflation. But in addition to that, we have our own local problems. Even if you ignore the imported inflation, we have our own local problems. So to the extent that we can control inflation, we have to deal with the local problems with respect to price of inputs, fertilizer inputs like fertilizer, seedlings that we use for production, irrigation, storage, transportation. These are all part of the local problems that we face in the country. So we have to, first of all, hope that the war ends and then Russia or Ukraine recovers. And also we have to deal with the internal problems that we have in our economy with respect to food production and also other sources of inflation. Because a typical example is the fuel prices. How are we going to resolve the fuel prices? So again, the fuel price, the crude oil price has shot up. The budget for this year was $62 per barrel. Today we are doing over $100 per barrel because of the war. So to the extent that the war will continue, I'm not sure we'll be able to deal with the inflation, but we have to start putting things in place now.
Well, a member of the Finance Committee and Member of Parliament for the Inshayasu constituency in the Ashanti region, Dr. Stephen Amoah, says that Ghana's inflation problems must be addressed from the scratch. According to him, adequate funding must be provided to assist the private sector in expanding, hence lowering importation. He was speaking earlier on the marketplace.
One of the major challenges confronting us as a country is, one, availability of adequate funds for the private sector to expand organically so they can employ a lot of people, they can produce to meet aggregate demand and cut down importation and then reduce depreciation of our city. You understand what I'm saying? This is the main thing that we need to do. So we have done, or I did it. In fact, my work was examined by 2 professors, Adibanji and Akrapra on KNUST campus, and then the work was examined by 1 professor from Canada and 1 from Pakistan, together with the KNUST professors. So I've come out with a new model as an improvement on the existing one for the banking sector. It will help them a lot. But the core issue we want to address, which is one of the fundamentals causing the issues we are raising, is the fact that the private sector, which is an engine of growth in Ghana here, governments, whether A or B, are challenging and competing with them for funds. And the government is rather giving higher returns. If I'm giving my money to government, it's giving me 20%. Will I give it to you? Exactly. Treasury bills in other developed jurisdictions fall within 1.52%. Now, treasury bills is about 22% or 21%. So we have these fundamentals that I know I will be attacked. I don't care whoever will attack, whether I'm MPP and DC. But what I'm trying to say is that it is not party A or B's problem. Ghana's problem has been the fact that multiples of decades, there are fundamentals that we need to fix. We always just talk about them. It is time we fix them. Before we even move to the secondary issues of what the public, they say, other stakeholders, the media, there are common issues that technocrats, experts, politicians, regulatory bodies, authorities, policymakers should say enough is enough. These are the right models. Let's try them, work with them. And as a country, we can manage our sovereignty within these defined models.
Well, let's now delve into the aviation space, because as British Airways limits its flight schedules on the Accra-London-Accra route owing to a shortage of staff, there are fears that this trend could see several other major airlines do same. For passengers from Ghana, this means a disruption in their business travel plans. But in the midst of these disruptions have arisen concerns about the state of Ghana's quest to have a national carrier. Even though Cabinet in 2021 granted policy approval for establishing a new flag carrier, efforts to get a strategic partner remain flawed. Joining me to discuss is Sean Mendes. He is an aviation expert who was in active service during the initial interest by government to secure a national carrier, and he's joined us for more. Sean, grateful to have you. Let us start off with a cursory look at summer passenger traffic and the peculiar shortage of staff hitting global airlines. How does this impact numbers in Ghana's aviation space?
Thanks for having me, Charles. It's not going to be a pleasant summer for anyone planning to travel this year, unfortunately. Especially in Europe and North America, airlines are suffering from a significant lack of staff. People had been laid off or furloughed during the COVID pandemic. And now that things are recovering, it just takes time for them to completely ramp up. And a lot of trained personnel and skilled personnel have allowed their licenses to lapse, allowed their security clearances to lapse. And it's simply not enough time to get everybody in place in time for the summer. So British Airways is one of the most affected by this. They've had to cut about 25 to 30% of their long-haul flights during the summer. So that's routes from Accra has been reduced from 7 to 5 times a week. And you're seeing similar cuts everywhere from India to the US to Brazil and throughout British Airways' network. And that's going to be a significant impact on them, but also going to be an impact on passengers. It's not unique to British Airways. KLM has been having a real nightmare over the last few weeks because they have shortage of baggage loaders at Amsterdam Schiphol Airport. So I'm sure a lot of people who've traveled on KLM in the last few weeks, I know a few, have been stuck without their bags because they simply don't have enough people to load them on planes. Air France is having problems because workers at Paris Charles de Gaulle have been striking, as the French tend to do every summer. So once again, you're having disruptions there. So this is going to be a very operationally challenging time for travelers, but also it's going to be a very expensive time for travelers. Fuel prices have really escalated due to the Russia-Ukraine conflict. Prices are up about 10 to 15% just because of fuel. In addition, there's additional demand in summer every year, which combined with the reduced supply due to these schedule cuts means that prices will increase even further on routes like Accra, London, where the demand really peaks during summer. However, this can be mitigated, traveling via the Middle East, Emirates, Qatar Airways, Turkish Airlines, indirect flights, taking stopovers, flying in the midweek, not flying on the peak travel dates. There are ways for passengers to travel smart, and if you hunt for the right deals, they are there to be found.
Indeed, indeed. But of course, you see these developments unfold, Sean, and you just ask yourself, what happened to Ghana's quest for a national carrier? You deal a lot with deep throat sources in Ghana's aviation space. What are you gathering?
Well, the whole National Airways project seems to be a bit of a boy who cried wolf. It's been 18 years since Ghana Airways shut down, 12 years since Ghana International Airlines shut down, and every year, regardless of who the minister in charge of the sector is, we hear the same story over and over again. So, I don't see the need for a national carrier, but yes, the conversations out there, the government seems to be looking at a range of new potential strategic partners, none of whom seem to be currently operating airlines. So these seem to be more investment partners rather than technical partners. I think we shall see what happens. We've had many deadlines laid over the last 12 to 15 years, and all of these have passed. So maybe this will be the one that comes.
Great. But in less than a minute, how then do we stem the tide, considering the current global operational challenges?
Well, the real opportunity right now is for Ghana to consolidate its position as the true gateway to the West African region. Ghana is the destination that most international airlines choose when they want to start service to West Africa. There are 27 or 28 international airlines in Ghana, which is more than anywhere else in the region, more than Lagos, Dakar, Abidjan. And this is because, despite all the talk of a national airline, the government of Ghana policies are actually quite welcome. If they can liberalize the visa regime, making it easier for tourists to come to Ghana, and if they can liberalize the airport tax regime, making it more competitive for passengers originating or transiting through Ghana. Right now they're paying $150 to $200 per passenger. It'll make Ghana even more attractive. And, if you're looking to spend taxpayer money, this is the way you should spend it to benefit the entire sector rather than chasing pipe dreams of a national carrier again.
Of course, as always, we're grateful for your submission. Sean Mendes, an aviation expert. You're watching Business Lifestyle. We have more news on myjoyonline.com. I'm Charles Ayitey. Many thanks for watching.